identity sheet. So we're going to continue here with secant now. Secant, if you remember, is a reciprocal of your cosine. So if you come over here and we're going to look at the cosine here, we've got of 1, or cosine of 0 there is equal to 1. We're going to find the secant of 0. The secant of 0 is just the reciprocal of 1 there. So if I turn that around, I just get 1 over 1, which is 1. Then we can do the secant there of pi over 6. And this cosine of pi over 6 there is a square root of 3 over 2. So I can just do the reciprocal, which is 2 over the square root of 3. And so again, I'm looking at that cosine column right there. And I'm looking there at square root of 3 over 2. So I just flipped it over. So I can't leave the square root of 3 down the denominator. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and denominator by a square root of 3. So I get 2 square root of 3 over 3. And then my next one there, the secant there of pi over 4. Right now the cosine there's a square root of 2 over 2, so we're going to do the reciprocal of that, which is 2 over square root of 2. So we get 2 square root of 2 over 2, which then our 2's cross out, so we end up just getting square root of 2. And then we've got the, I come down over here, secant of pi over 3. And that's equal to, cosine is equal to 1/2, so the reciprocal of that would be 2. And then we've got the secant there of pi over 2. The cosine of pi over 2 there is 0 over 1, so if I flip that, I get 1 over 0, and I cannot divide by 0. So this ends up being undefined. So I'm going to put that down, because 1 cannot divide by 0. Cosecant is just the reciprocal of the sine. So now I'm going to look at the sine column there. So sine there is 0. So the cosecant of 0 is equal to, instead of 0 over 1, I'm going to do 1 over 0. And again, I'm getting that undefined answer down there. So undefined. And then I can do the cosecant there of pi over 6. So looking there at the sign there is 1/2 at pi over 6. So I'm going to flip that. I get 2 over 1, which is 2. So I get 2. And then cosecant of pi over 4. Again, the sine of pi over 4 there is a square root of 2 over 2. So it's 2 over the square root of 2. Cannot leave a square root of 2 in my denominator. So I get 2 square root of 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is the square root of 4, which is 2. The 2's cancel out, and we just get the square root of 2. And then we've got the cosecant of pi over 3. The sine there of pi over 3 is square root of 3 over 2. Reciprocal of that is 2 over square root of 3. I'm going to multiply my numerator and denominator by a square root of 3. So I get 2 square root of 3 over 3. Because the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 there is the square root of 9, which is 3. So 2 square root of 3 over 3. And then I've got the cosecant of pi over 2. Looking at the sine there column, the sine there of pi over 3, there's a square root of 3 over 2. So looking at the cosecant of pi over 2, this cosecant of pi over 2 there is 1. The sine is 1. So the cosecant is also 1 because I can do 1 over 1 there, which is just 1. And so now we've got our nice chart filled in. And again, this should be filled in on the identity sheet as well. So on that yellow identity sheet that I gave you, that chart should be filled in. I think you have to add an extra column over there just like we did for degrees. So check to make sure that you've got 3, 6, 7. There should be 7 columns on that sheet, and you got to add your 8th one there, I believe. All right, next thing we're going to do is just kind of now go through all the signs here. We've talked about the signs for sine and cosine. So if you remember here, over here, this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, This is quadrant 3. This is quadrant 4. Whoops, 4. So looking at the signs of these now, if you remember your ordered pairs over here is x comma y, so it goes cosine of theta comma sine theta on your unit circle. So cosine and sine in quadrant 1 are both positives. And then coming over here, quadrant 2 here, cosine's your x, so we're going over negative and up a positive. So cosine there is going to be negative, and your sine is going to be positive. In quadrant 3 here, you're going to go over a negative and down a negative, so both your cosine and your sine there are negative. And then in quadrant 4 over here, we're going to go over a positive, so cosine's positive, and sine here is negative. So you already have those written down. That's just kind of a review on that. So now let's go ahead and let's look at the other one, so tangent. So tangent is equal to sine over cosine, which is really your, so in quadrant 1 over here, if I look at my sine over my cosine there, you've got a positive divided by a positive gives you a positive. So tangent is also positive. Same thing over here, tangent in quadrant 2 is sine over cosine. So my sine here is positive, my cosine is negative. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. So tangent over here is negative. In quadrant 3 here, you can think through it the same way. Tangent is sine over cosine. But all our sine values down here are negative, and all our cosine values are negative. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So our tangent is positive. And then in quadrant 4, we can do sine divided by cosine here. So since we've got one of each, got a negative divided by a positive, we're also going to get a negative. So down here in quadrant 4, tangent is negative. So then we can look at secant here, the reciprocal. So if your cosine there is positive, we got 1 divided by a positive here ends up being a positive. So my secant is also positive. And then I can go ahead and do my secant over here as well. And so my secant of theta there. So then in quadrant 2 here, secant here ends up being, again, the reciprocal of your cosine here. So if I look at that one, got 1 over, the cosine down here is negative, so I can do 1 divided by a negative, which is a negative. So secant is also negative. So you can start to see the pattern here. If you've got a positive for your cosine there, your secant is going to be positive. In quadrant 2, your secant there was a negative, so, or your cosine there was a negative, so also your secant is negative. So if cosine's negative, then secant's also going to be negative. So down here in quadrant 3, kind of going with that pattern, cosine is negative, so secant is negative. Cosine over here in quadrant 4 is positive, secant is positive. So then looking there at sine, we can do that next, or cosecant we can do next. So cosecant of theta is 1 over the sine. The sine there is positive, so it's 1 over a positive, which is a positive. So sine, or cosecant is also positive. And so coming over here in quadrant 2 here, I can also look at cosecant. Cosecant is 1 over the sine. The sine here in quadrant 2 here is positive, so 1 divided by a positive is a positive. So cosecant is also positive along with sine. So you can start to see again, the pattern is the function and its reciprocal, they are of the same sign. So in quadrant 3 down here, since sine is negative, cosecant is going to be negative. Since down here in quadrant 4 here, your sine is negative, cosecant's going to be negative. So then cotangent. Cotangent is reciprocal of, running out of colors here. Here, we'll do blue. So we can do cosecant of theta is, or sorry, cotangent. Cotangent of theta is equal to 1 over the tangent. Well, tangent there is positive, so 1 divided by a positive is a positive. So cotangent is also positive. So in this case, we have no negatives here in quadrant 1. Everything's positive. In quadrant 2 here, we can do 1 over the tangent, and the tangent here ends up being negative, so 1 divided by negative gives us a negative. So again, the same relationship. So you can start to see the pattern around here. If the function is negative, then its reciprocal function will be negative, no matter which one it is. So cotangent down here, since tangent is positive, cotangent is positive. Since over here in quadrant 4, cotangent or tangent down here in quadrant 4 is negative, cotangent will be negative. So those are also listed on the orange unit circle that I gave you. That's the key there. They have them listed down here in the upper corners and down here, corners down here. So those are also listed down there. You're going to want those. So let's look at some exact measures here. And we're going to use your identity sheet at the same time as your unit circle. So if I just simply look in there at the sine of pi over 3, I can look on my unit circle, or I can look over here on my identity sheet. So if I look at the sine of pi over 3 here, so that's right here. So I get the square root of 3 over 2. Secant of pi over 3, or negative pi over 3, but I'm going to look at pi over 3 first because it's the ones that's given here. So if we find the first quadrant, we can just reflect it. So secant of pi over 3, so that's right here at 2, but that's pi over 3. I'm going to put a 2 down, but then I got to check the sign. So if I look over here, just using my unit circle here, pi over 3 is up here. If I reflect it down here, it matches up with the 300 one down here. And and I can tell if I'm going this way, because that's pi over 3 is this way, negative pi over 3 is going to be there, same distance there, just in the opposite direction. So looking here, the secant of pi over 3 is 2 there, so the secant of 5 pi over 3 here, or negative pi over 3 here, is going to be positive value. So it's the same thing, it's 2 in each case here. So I'm back over here, writing down 2. The tangent is 7 pi over 6. So I'm going to find 7 pi over 6 and look for its relative here. So it reflects over here, and then it reflects over here. So we're looking at the tangent of pi over 6. So tangent of pi over 6. So I'm going to use my identity sheet, and I'm going to find the tangent of pi over 6. Tangent of pi over 6 there is a square root of 3 over 3. So square root of 3 over 3. And then I just have to check my signs here. There's our tangent. Right now it's positive because we're in quadrant 1. Now we're looking at 7 pi over 6. 7 pi over 6 is down here in quadrant 3 here. So now look for your tangent down here. Your tangent down here is positive, we can see. So tangent of 7 pi over 6 is positive, so it's just a square root of 3 over 3. I'm going to continue this on another video, so if you could pull up video C there, that would be great.